Before diving into this story, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe, because here, every story is a new emotion you won't want to miss. She spent her days among dusty pages, her world wrapped in silence and forgotten stories. The kind of silence that speaks louder than words. But then, he walked in. A boy with torn clothes and eyes that held storms far too big for someone his age. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He opened a book, and for the first time in years, she felt something shift, like someone wasn't just reading words. He was reading her. Their eyes met across the stillness. And in that moment, everything changed. Lucia lived alone, wrapped in quiet routines and the scent of old books. Once, she had a husband who loved poetry, but cancer took him too soon. They never had children, just a house filled with silence and a library that became her second home. Within those walls, stories gave her comfort and characters became her company. It was safer to stay surrounded by fiction than face the ache of reality. She noticed the boy began appearing just before closing time, always alone, always quiet. He never asked for help, never looked up, just sat in the far corner, hands trembling slightly as he turned the fragile pages. There was something solemn in the way he read, as if each word held a key he desperately needed. Then, one late afternoon, she caught him crying softly over the old man and the sea. His tears fell onto the yellowed page, and her heart couldn't stay silent. Approaching slowly, she spoke with a warmth that surprised even herself. "Hemingway got to you, didn't he? He does that to warriors who don't know they're warriors yet." The boy flinched but didn't run. He only looked down, ashamed but not angry. Lucia didn't ask questions. She simply offered him a cup of tea. He refused quietly, politely, but the next day, he came back and said yes. Raphael started coming every day, always at the same hour, always sitting in the same chair. Lucia noticed he never touched the newer books, only the ones that smelled like time. He read with hunger, as if the words were food. And maybe, in a way, they were. She began leaving specific titles near his spot, pretending it was a coincidence. She picked books that had saved her once. Stories of solitude, survival, second chances. Slowly, she watched how he reacted to each one. Less miserables made him clench his fists. To Kill a Mockingbird made him pace in silence. The Little Prince left him staring at the ceiling, lost in thoughts too big for words. Their conversation started small, a nod here, a question there. Then, one evening, as they closed the library together, he said, "Do people in books always survive the pain?" Lucia looked at him and answered gently, "Not always. But they always learn to carry it differently." That night, he didn't rush out the door. Lucia found out he had no home, no parents looking for him. He had run away from a place where fear was louder than love. The streets were cruel, but the drug gang was worse. Books, he said, were the only things that didn't lie to him. They told him he could be more than his past. She began calling it their secret book club. No rules, no memberships. Just one heartbroken boy and one lonely woman sharing pages like lifelines. They didn't need to explain their pain. Each chapter did it for them. And every book he read became another seed of hope. Hope that maybe he wasn't invisible anymore. Sometimes she would catch him laughing at a line in The Alchemist, or crying quietly over Of Mice and Men. When she saw him really feeling, she realized he hadn't grown numb, just hidden. Her goal wasn't to fix him, it was to remind him he wasn't broken beyond repair. She saw the cracks, and still she stayed. One afternoon, he turned to her with tears on his cheeks and said, "It's like these books. They're talking to me. Like someone finally sees who I could be." His voice shook, but he didn't look away this time. Lucia's heart swelled with quiet courage. She touched his hand and whispered, "That's because I do see you, Raphael." He started helping her shelve the books, dust the shelves, even repair torn pages. The library wasn't just a place anymore, it was their place. a sanctuary built not of bricks, but of words, tea, and unspoken understanding. Lucia felt lighter, even younger. Raphael, meanwhile, walked a little taller with each passing day. He began writing notes in the margins of old books, tiny thoughts scribbled like confessions. This one saved me. This part sounds like my mother. Wish I'd known this when I was 10. Lucia never erased them. She kept each one like treasure proof that he was still becoming, still alive. And so, between tea and Tolstoy, silence and Steinbeck, something fragile but fierce grew between them. Not quite mother and son, not quite teacher and student, just two souls who had been lost in different ways and somehow ... found each other between the lines. The books gave them language, but the affection? That came from seeing one another fully. Raphael disappeared. One day he was there, laughing softly at a line from a book, then gone. Lucia waited, heart pounding with each hour that passed. On the third night, she left the comfort of her shelves and searched the city. She found him near the train station, bruised, bleeding, and shivering under a broken light. He had tried to go back to old friends for food and shelter, but the price was violence. Lucia knelt beside him, holding his face with trembling hands. She didn't scold, didn't cry, just whispered, "Come home." She had no bed to offer, no proper care. But she gave him the safest thing she had, herself. She turned the library into a quiet refuge. At night, they hid among the shelves. By day, she cleaned the floors with extra purpose just to keep eyes away. It was a delicate balance, one whisper away from collapse. But Raphael began to heal slowly, inside and out. Books became medicine. Her presence, the cure. Someone noticed. A coworker reported suspicious behavior, too many hours, too many closed doors. Lucia was called in, questioned, warned. She looked them in the eyes and told the truth, without shame. "If helping a boy survive is wrong," she said, "then maybe your rules were never meant to protect anyone." She pleaded with the local school director, who at first refused. But she brought Raphael's writings, his notes, his favorite books with underlined sentences and scribbled dreams. Something in them softened the man. A scholarship was granted. For the first time, Raphael had a desk with his name on it, and a future that didn't terrify him. Lucia helped him study, fed him sandwiches, and sat by his side when the world still felt too loud. He entered a citywide writing contest. His essay, titled "The Woman Who Found Me," went viral. The media came. Donations poured in. An NGO offered him a place to stay, a path to college. For the first time, Raphael smiled without flinching. Years passed, but Raphael never forgot the sound of pages turning in silence, or the smell of old paper that had once felt like home. Now, standing in front of a classroom filled with restless teenagers, he carried books in his arms and a calm strength in his voice. The same words that once saved him, he now passed on like lanterns in the dark. His students listened. Some rolled their eyes, some took notes, but all of them felt something. Across the city, in the same little library, Lucia sat at her usual desk, now slower in her movements, gentler in her speech. Her hair had turned silver and her back ached more often, but her eyes still sparkled when she opened a new book. She kept a small photo on her desk, a young Raphael holding the old man and the sea, smiling like the world hadn't broken him. She looked at it often, her heart swelling with quiet pride. She didn't need applause, that smile was enough. One quiet afternoon, the door creaked open. She looked up, expecting another student or a late return, but it was him, grown, confident, and wearing the same expression she remembered from years ago. They didn't speak at first. They just hugged, tight, like no time had passed at all. In that embrace, 1,000 unsaid things were understood. Raphael took a seat beside her like he used to. They talked about books, life, the students he now taught, the poems he still wrote in secret. He pulled a worn notebook from his bag and handed it to her. Inside were essays, letters, and reflections, some messy, some poetic. On the first page, he had written, "To the woman who didn't teach me how to read, but taught me how to live." Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She simply smiled and placed the notebook on the shelf beside her, between two books she knew he once loved. That shelf had become a kind of altar, a living testament to what love, patience, and courage could do when nobody else believed. She didn't rescue him. She reminded him he was worth saving. As Raphael left that day, the sun poured through the tall windows, painting golden lines across the wooden floor. Lucia stood in the doorway, watching him disappear into the light. There was no need for goodbyes. Their story would always live on those shelves, in those pages, and most of all, in the lives he would go on to change. All because someone once stayed when everyone else left. Not every hero wears a cape. Sometimes she wears a cardigan, carries books, and speaks with quiet kindness. And sometimes one small act of compassion, one decision to see someone when the world looks away, becomes the spark that rewrites a destiny. In a world of noise, the softest voices still echo the loudest ... when spoken from the heart. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment below. Your words might inspire the next story. And hey, if you felt something real today, consider subscribing. We're building a community where stories heal, connect, and change lives. One video at a time.